Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever anybody is watching this at whatever time zone they're watching. My name is Lori Krajewski, and this is Coffee with Kelly. My name is Lori. Like I said, I do integrative health and wellness coaching, education, exploration. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast was because I like to meet with other people who know all of the things that I don't know yet. And I thought, what better way to get to know what other people do and get to know what other people offer than to start meeting with people and just having coffee. It's one of the best ways I have found to really get to know people. And why not record these sessions? Because I'm not the only one interested in hearing all the fun things, right? So I want to share them with you. That said, if you have something to offer, if you have some kind of wisdom that you want to share, if you are writing a book or you just published a book and you want to tell everybody about it, I would love to hear from you. So reach out, schedule a time to have coffee, and we will talk. So today I am going to welcome Kelly Mehan. Is that right? Mehan?
Yep, you said it right. Correct.
Okay. Kelly is a healing visionary. She's a published author, a birth advocate, and a holistic earth mother to her sons, Rain and Little Forest. She calls herself a spirit baby medium, which is a title she created. And with that, she shares messages from the spirit of a child before life and afterlife. She provides services that focus on spirit baby communication in conception, energetic fertility healing, medical intuition, pre-birth connection in pregnancy, and sacred grief support in all areas of birth loss. Kelly understands how to listen to the unseen and deeply felt world of spirit baby and more. I'm fascinated.
Well, thanks for having me. I was joking, like, here, I brought my tea for our
It's a little
tea
late
talk.
for coffee, isn't it? Yeah, it's a little late for coffee, but
I'm not a coffee drinker, so.
So tell me all of the things. Tell me, you mentioned before we started recording that you are from New Jersey and now you're in California.
Yep.
What has your life been like so far, and what led you to the work that you're doing now? I know that's opening a can of worms, but that's why we're here, right?
Very big question. Yeah, I've almost lived, I think at this point, half my life in New Jersey, half my life here, because I'm getting up there right now. So it's quite fascinating to see. I lived on both coasts from east to west, and my children are West Coast California boys. They were born, they were created and birthed here. But how I came about the work, it's so interesting because to me it feels like just like yesterday. But then I have to really sit down and I'm like, wow, the years have really gone so quickly. And just even in the work that I've created, this kind of area of spirit baby began 9 years ago, I'd say. But then I was really reflecting even recently, like when people always ask, when was your first spirit baby like interaction? Like when did you meet them and how did you know? And I realized the children that I met was 16 years ago. And it's interesting, so I'm like, the work has only been less than that. And so I had a connection, and this is a really neat story where I was in my master's in somatic psychology, clinical, that's what I studied. And we were all doing energy work with one of the moms, and she was just newly pregnant. It was a student, it was a friend. And I remember putting my hands and just like, oh, we're loving her. And then I just saw things, and I thought everybody could do that, right? I didn't realize I was clairvoyant forever. I never claimed it. And so then in that moment, I said, are you having a boy and a girl? I see twins. And then I saw how they were going to help your body heal. And the mom, of course, was like, no, I'm having one baby. And I'm like, okay, she's the mom, she knows. Well, she had a home birth and she didn't do any medical intervention, where I'm leading to. She had twins, and first was the boy, second was the girl, and she's fine. Everything was good. And at that time, people weren't really home birthing at home. Twin birthing at home birth, right? Because it's like, oh, there's so much around that. Now we've come very far in that space, collectively, worldly, around birthing birthing with twins at home vaginally. Not for everybody, but for her, there was a deeper energy in that. And I remember getting a text saying, hey, this friend of ours, they're like, could you believe it? Do you remember what you said on that hill in the park that day? And I'm like, what did I say? And it was like, you said she was having twins. And look, months later, she goes into labor early and she literally has twins. And then it made me go, oh. So then I went into this space of like, okay, so my imagination is psychically connected. My imagination is not my imagination, and this is for everybody. We always think everything's our imagination, but there are energetic stories that come to us. And so fast forward years down the road, I have refined that skill in my everyday life, that I hear things through the language of energy. And it feels good to really accept and know that, because I was the kid in school that really sucked at school because I really tuned into another world and I could never get the left brain, get the tests, write the words properly. And I realized is that I'm so connected to another language and energy, and it makes more sense to me now. And so coming into this spirit baby medium and claiming this title, it just kind of came from there, and just connecting with women in pregnancy and just telling them what their babies were saying and getting confirmation. Sometimes names and things come up, relatives, and there's no, definitive energy. It is like a meeting with energy and we'll see. And then it just kind of grew and grew from there over the years.
Wonderful. I'm just thinking back in my own experience. I was sitting in a chiropractor's office, and this very pregnant woman was coming out of the treatment room, right? And I looked at her and I just kind of looked away. I didn't know who she was, and glanced away, and I heard 2 weeks, baby girl, difficult delivery. And I went, when a lot of this first started happening to me, I just thought it was my very wild imagination. Like you said, you don't, when these things first start happening, I imagine you kind of felt like you're kind of making it up. Your imagination is very active. And then when things start actually coming true, you think, okay, what is this?
Yeah.
And I've had this conversation with a lot of people, both in the quote unquote psychic world and in the biblical world. Biblically, I am told that you can't open up to that energy because it is demonic. And the messages that you're getting are delivered because demons know, and demons can be tricky, and it can't be trusted. I can't say one way or another what anybody should decide for themselves. I can only say what I know for myself. And excuse me, there is no way, no how, it is absolutely not possible for me in my belief system that the information that I get has anything to do with anything other than good, because the information that I have received has saved at least 2 lives.
Yeah.
How can that be demonic? Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying I'm wrong. I'm not saying the biblical beliefs are wrong. I'm not saying the psychics are wrong. I'm just saying I don't really know how a lot of this works. I just know what I know.
Oh, no, I would say the biblical way is wrong, to be honest. Yeah,
Okay.
because I mean, there are dark energies and light energies, but I feel like we're evolving past old doctrination of man's words that, like you said, I've worked with thousands of women and men, like thousands, and everything good comes from the connection of their story with their child. And if there is anything unsettling, I actually hear it. I actually have seen dark energies, and it's not my frequency. And so bringing in the purity of baby and that connection with a mother, with a father, is it's just love, really. It's so pure, and you cannot misinterpret that purity and love. And so I know that we're all tuned into certain frequencies, and I don't know why. I'm tuned into this before life frequency, and I've been holding that energy and space for so many different stories, and it's not always, sweetness and happiness of pregnancy, which I do enjoy, but I hear a lot of heartache, a lot of trauma, and see, even traumas from parents I didn't even know existed, to be honest. And somehow I'm able to step forward and to be of service in that. And to give, you know, a connection to especially mothers in birth loss, to know that the eternalness of their child is still so present, even if we don't 100% know all the time, as you're saying. Does it really matter? I would even say half the time, like, how do you feel? How do you connect? What is that, you know, what is that for you? So, but I like the idea, like you said, of questioning. And the big thing I tell my clients and even in my programs is being curious, always being curiosity. And it's okay when we're not sure of things and things come up. It's like, okay, can I just be okay with not knowing?
Mhm.
Because I don't have all the answers with people. People want to know, hey, Kelly, why am I not conceiving? Some answers do come through lineage and other stories. Sometimes it's a work in progress that people have to work towards
Mhm.
opening, preparing, and healing, whatever that is. And I know in our culture, we're in such a give me that one thing. And you probably see that as a health coach. It's like, well, just tell me eat a can of corn or something, or tell me to like do this and everything's going to be okay. And it's like, oh, if it was only that easy, because life isn't like that, especially the portal of birth and even the portal of death. It's like, this is the world of, you know, birth and death, they say, is not that far apart. And I'm, you know, looking at both connections and both realities all the time.
You mentioned trauma and something that you didn't know about. What did that mean?
Well,
I
there are
wasn't sure
some
what you meant.
traumas I didn't even know were possible for people to experience, and I've had to sit and hear them and listen, and that's hard. That's very
Mhm.
deep for someone that's clairsentient, which is an empath and energy feeler, and just somebody that, like, I have my own traumas.
Mhm.
I came into the world very traumatically, so I think that's why I have, let's say, a sharpened ear to receive very traumatic stories from people, and some I was like, is that, wow, I guess that's possible. Like, I never would even think that that could happen to somebody. Where someone was a twin, she struggles to conceive, and she works in the birth area. She's not in this country, and she was a twin, but she was supposed to be aborted. So her twin
Wow.
got aborted, but she survived.
Wow.
That is really big energy to be in this world with,
Yeah.
because her first moments of life was terror, threat, you're not wanted. And then she comes into this world to receive her own birth, pregnancy, and she just can't.
Yeah.
And doctors are like, we don't know, you're good, go get pregnant. It's like, what is that? That foundation, and this is where birth psychology comes in. That foundation is really important. This is why in a lot, you know, in America's maternity system, I want to say it's improving, maybe in tiny ways, but it's still not really good. And it's what we're doing to that very foundation of life and how we're born is a really big deal.
It
And it
is.
does imprint this kind of healing journey with many of us. And yet we have to be forgiving, because sometimes, yeah, there's some shitty births that happen, very traumatic things. Death happens as well. I work with a lot of death after birth.
Mhm.
And again, things I never thought I would hear, and things that are close to my heart now, and things that are just a part of me. And so, I'm hearing a lot of different, yeah, traumatic things, and people in major abuse and sexual, physical abuse, and they're struggling maybe to have a child. And, you know, I always feel like it can come back to those early roots. And sometimes it's even beyond this lifetime where there's a struggle to bring in life and that portal in between worlds. But I think there's a healing, like an awakening is what I like to see. What is this child, spirit baby beings? What are they bringing into your life to expand you, to bring in this new world energy of children that are more integral, that are empathic, that are more grounded into being who they are? This is what we want for humanity. And we have to make that birth, that early connection, you know, present and aware, to then see what comes next, you know?
Right. Right. There's a saying, I'm probably not going to remember it and I'm probably going to massacre it, but there's a quote that says, "They who are so fresh from God who love us."
Mm.
And it is just something that's always stuck with me, because um, I do have one son. We had always thought that we would have three. Never understood why I didn't get pregnant again. You know, in hindsight, I think I have some pretty good ideas of how my body probably wasn't going to support other pregnancies.
Mm.
But it was always something that I wondered, you know, why only one? not that, not that one's not enough, but I'm just kind of fascinated that you're able to give people insight about that. So are you involved in any birth processes, or are you strictly just kind of working out of your office, supporting verbally? I would be
Yeah.
really interested in having the gifts that you have and being a doula.
Oh, I know. Well, I actually opened up last year the Spirit Baby Academy, and I work with the doulas and midwives come to me to do this work. And so I love doulas. Doulas and midwives like make me so happy. And that's why I call myself a birth advocate. I would say with the birth of my son, I got very involved. So he's 12 now, so 12 years ago. I got very involved in the birth community, which wasn't very big. And I remember even protesting, standing on the government, just in hospitals, walking around the front of hospitals, reteach, breach, just really supporting the midwives and doulas, or just, trying to be a voice in the crowd, to be of change for these systems. And so I became very connected with a lot of doulas, midwives in this community. And I never felt like I fit in that community. I didn't know where I fit in, to be honest. I'm like, is it the spiritualists? Is it the birth people? Because I know what I do is very unique, and yet we interlink. Because I have a lot of MDs, psychologists, acupuncturists from all around the world who use me as a referral. And then it just like wildfire. People hear, they like what they experience in the space with me, and it benefits them. And so I feel like, there's so much to stand up for birth. And so not a doula. I considered it for half a second, but I don't want to do that. That's not my work. Midwife, I was like, I'd love to be a midwife, except there's fluids and blood, and I don't do that. Like, no, I can't. Like, no. But I love my one friend is she came, I had a home birth with my second. I had a first one was a transfer. With my second, I had the best midwife team. And my one friend who was kind of my doula, because she goes, I didn't have to doula you, Kelly. And she was an apprentice midwife who's now a midwife, was in that space. And it was so much love. It was like a sister. I don't have sisters, so I had brothers. It was like having a sister in the space to give birth with. And so I love the midwives. I have such respect for them and doulas, but they do come to me, not just for private sessions, but just to learn how to bring that. And most doulas, they are so connected to spirit baby energy. They are so intuitive. They're usually clairsentient empaths. They feel, and that's amazing. You need to be that alert, because you're supporting the mom and the couple or the partner. You're supporting that birth. And so, yeah.
I agree. I actually considered being a doula for a long time, because I live in an area where there weren't a lot of home births. There's no birthing center. There's no, there's no alternative. If you have a baby, you either go to the hospital or you're on your own. And I mean, even our son is 24, even 24 years later, that's still the case. There are no, birthing centers. You don't go have a water birth at a birthing center with a midwife. It's just not here.
Yeah, and there are more birthing centers sprouting up around the United States. Even hospitals are having birthing tubs, which I think that's really amazing. But I hear you. Some communities it's harder. But that connection of doula-ing others, it's so beautiful. And again, definitely much needed and continuing to be needed. But it's never too late. It's never too late. You can always become a doula,
Right.
It really isn't.
I just like the idea of, women supporting women.
Yeah.
Not that I didn't want my husband's support, but he's just got that male mind, and they just think differently.
Yeah, and they get nervous too. But he gets if he's at the fathers and male energy partnership with female male, the males get nervous and anxious, and they need doulaing too, which is great. They do, because I remember my husband, I was like, oh, I felt his nervousness, and I was like, I can't do that. Like, go away.
Well, my husband is very, he's a construction worker. He's a builder. He's built very large buildings. So he's all about structure and organization and things lining up. And he was more interested in watching the tape of my contractions
Oh yeah,
You
that would
know,
be
I mean,
interesting.
he's just got that very logical, organized, structured mind, where when you're uncomfortable and you are about to bring a human into the
Mm,
world, that's not what I needed. And,
yeah.
you know, it would have been really nice to have uh like a female support in the room. And I really didn't connect with the nurse. I didn't really feel like she was, I don't know. It was all very
Yeah.
mechanical. And it wasn't, you know, it wasn't that girly stuff, you know?
Yeah, birthing is so intimate. I'm like, I tell women, they're like, you find a doula that you don't mind your vagina spread open to, okay? And then you go, can I have this person in the room in this intimate way, especially in a hospital? It is
Mhm.
the most unsexy, unintimate place. And I'm not saying to go have a home birth or free birth, but I can understand coming back to home was incredible. Being at home and knowing that you're not at risk, that you're safe. I literally go from living room, birthing stool to my bedroom, looking at the window, everybody's feeding me. I have my baby, everyone's loving me. I'm like, that is it. This is not a medical emergency. There's nothing, that's what happens. I just don't like that environment where it's like everything's stressful or, I knew when I was birthing my son in this dark room, I looked around the room, it was like half dark and lit, and I could see the midwife with three midwives, two and an apprentice, eyes closed. I don't know if they were meditating, if they were counting I don't know what they were doing, but they were so peaceful. And then my
Yeah.
best friend was there. She was on duty with my older son who got to see his brother be born. And I remember in this moment, like I took a moment and I was like, wow, I could just be so vulnerable right now because it is vulnerable to birth.
Mhm.
There's a human coming out of your body. Like this is a big deal. And I remember in that moment, I was like, I couldn't do this anywhere else. There'd be no way that I could just let go to allow this to happen. And I wish, like in my mind, like you can't talk your way into birth really. You just have to surrender into it. And, there's no pain meds to go to. There's no over intervention. It's just me and baby and spirit. Like we're just doing this.
Right.
No interference, no natural oxytocin, natural everything. And it really is a big deal because in between contractions, I could feel my energy change. I
Mhm.
could feel this rush and my body was shaking with euphoria. And I was like, that's the part that we've been told epidurals is for everybody, that's what gets blocked. So you don't get to have that natural chemistry. And it's really, I like to blame the culture because our culture of birth says this could be dangerous. We got to do this, we got to do that. And then we have to make peace with whatever path we take, really, and
Mhm.
whatever healing comes.
Mhm.
And so for me to be in the experience of it was really important. I'm a very experiential kinesthetic and to really feel, the intensity of birth too. And by the way, I had an orgasmic moment too. And I was like, is this real? Is this
Right.
possible? I wasn't like signing up for any orgasmic birthing workshops. But when I felt that energy moving in my hips towards the end of birth, I was like, whoa, that's really weird. I was like, it felt pleasurable, it felt orgasmic, and I felt my breathing changed. But again, as I was saying, I felt really safe. I felt safe. And that was a big deal to me. And then knowing that the everybody around me was gonna make it safer for me and that I was okay. And I had birth trauma before. I had a lot of other traumas in my pelvic floor. So it was very activating when my son was being born, but he came and he's there and but yeah, kind of you got me all going into doula and midwives.
So I'm curious, when you were pregnant, how do you feel you connected with these? And I mean, I knew that I was having a boy. I mean,
Oh
I
yeah.
didn't need anybody to tell me that. The ultrasound couldn't tell us anyway, but it was fine. I knew I was having a boy. Did you connect with your babies? Did you know they were boys? Did
Yeah,
you?
so my firstborn was very talkative, very loud, very wild-spirited, and he became that way when he was born. He was literally the personality he showed me he was in earth form. And he, yeah, very talkative, meditation. I close my eyes, just talk to him. I hear him telepathically instantly. He came to me in 3 dreams. And he was a boy, and I'm like, there's a boy coming. There's no doubt about it. It was such boy energy. And I did my one sonogram. Remember, I don't do intervention because I listen to intuition. That's how I do it. And plus I have a medical trauma history. So I'm like, it's me. I'm going to listen to me. And so, yeah, they said it was a boy. So I was like, yeah, you don't, no sonogram's going to be, it doesn't matter. Like it was
Yeah.
so strong. So my second one though is a little confused. I saw girl energy come to me, but then I remember sitting in the throes of nausea on the couch and I felt him saying, I'm a boy. And I'm like, no, are you sure you're not a girl? Because I felt like he had such a feminine energy to me and he wasn't wild spirited like my first. And that's their personalities, by the way, Earth side. My older one is a wild kinesthetic, very boy energy. And my second one is like very sensitive, very sweet. He was called a girl for the first 3 years of his life when he was born. He just looked pretty and he had wavy hair and literally someone gave me a balloon, was like, she's so adorable. I'm like, thank you. What's her name? Oh, his name is Forrest. And I take the balloon. They're like, wait a minute. I'm so sorry. And I never corrected anybody. It didn't matter. Children are very androgynous. He doesn't care if you're calling him a boy or girl at that age. He was just really beautiful. And I understood why people said that, but he felt like a girl energy to me. And he's a boy. So then I'm like, okay, boy, mom time. And so I got less communication, I felt like, with my second. And I think it was because I had a first earthborn child that was like taking me through a lot. And then I was like, I'm a spirit baby medium. I should hear him. And he was like, one day I was at the beach and I remember I was pregnant. I was like, oh my God. And I get such bad nausea, like all the way through all trimesters. And I'm just like trying to like cope with being like, I feel like I'm being taken over. And then I remember I was like, okay, I got to drop into the beach, let go. And I remember he came to me and said, Mommy, it's okay. Calm down. And I was like, am I that high strung? I was getting so anxious. And then I was like, okay. And I was working a lot with women at the time in their sacral energy too. And so he wasn't very talkative. He actually felt like he didn't need to prove to me anything. Like he was there. He was just like, he'd come and go in a very sweet way. And I was like, okay, I got to trust him. And he's much like that in his earth body. And so every soul, I call it soul personality. Every soul personality is a little different. And I do trust moms. We feel it like you felt your son. You're like, oh, this is a boy. I don't care what they say. You feel it, you know it. And you have, it sounds like more of a psychic self too, that like maybe it's a little bit more refined that you can really hear it. And so I trust women. Like I trusted that the woman who had the twins, who felt the boy. I'm having a boy. She thought an 8-pound boy had 2 4-pound babies, but that boy was the firstborn. And the girl was behind. And I do feel like with I've worked with twin pregnancies where one mom was like, oh, the girl's on the right, the boy's on the left. She's like, I know it. And they were. And I feel like sometimes the stronger energy is the stronger twin. There is always a stronger twin biologically. There just is. And I feel like sometimes people feel that energy more. So again, every soul personality is different. And I trust moms. I help them trust themselves.
I think that's the biggest part is we are not taught. I mean, you and I, maybe now this is starting to happen, but when I was a kid, I didn't know that I was an empath. I didn't know why I was so sensitive. All I was ever told was, you're so shy. You're so shy. You never talk to anybody. You know, it was always this tone of condemnation for the way that I was. And I didn't understand why I felt so sensitive and why I felt everything, really. I just, there was just so much that I didn't understand. There's so much about my world that I didn't understand, so much about myself that I didn't understand, that as I got older and started hearing words like clairaudient and clairvoyant and all of these clairsentient, all of the clairs, and then all of the empath stuff. And then you hear words like highly sensitive person. And I started putting the dots together and I was like, you know, if somebody would have just told me when I was a kid that I'm just a little weird. I think it would have been.
Yeah, I was the shy kid too. I think that's pretty common when you feel everything.
Everything.
You're labeled as shy because you're like, I'm trying to freaking down. I'm trying to take this all in.
Well, and I didn't want to take it all in. I'm just trying to breathe over here. Okay. I just need to breathe, man. Everything was honestly just too much. It was too much. And it's really interesting. I have had chronic fatigue my whole life. The more that I understand about how many years I felt like everything was too much and I was trying to block everything out, I can see how my body used chronic fatigue
Exhausting.
to take a
Yeah.
break, to literally take a time out from all of the things that I didn't know how to mitigate and move through. It just kept moving at me and hitting at me. And now that I've learned how to get it to move through and, you know, just work with it. And like you said, empowering people to know themselves better and trust themselves better and to trust what they know better. It doesn't always make sense, but if there's one thing that I would love for everyone to understand is if you think you know, you know. You know. Stop doubting yourself. And it's those little random moments, like when you're about to step off a curb and something tells you not to, you don't know what that something is, but you don't question it. You don't step off the curb and a car comes flying by. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, that happens to me all the time.
All the time. And I think a lot of
just automatic pilot with the intuition. Just, I love what you're saying.
If people could just really start to not only stop ignoring it, but really start to work with that. When we didn't have such big cities and we didn't have stores for our every need and we had to hunt and gather, we had that sense. We absolutely had that sense, and we absolutely used that sense to survive in this world. Just because our world has changed a little bit and our need to survive isn't as intense doesn't mean that that sense went anywhere. And it doesn't mean that we shouldn't rely on it anymore. So I think it's fascinating that you've turned your life into helping people better understand that. That's something I wish was taught in kindergarten. I wish we were taught to really get to know ourselves and get to know, understand our feelings and how to work with them, not shut them down. You know, I always say that the minute we start learning language is the minute that we start learning how to shut our feelings down. And our feelings can be really insightful and be really helpful if we take a minute to understand them. And when we understand them, there's no drama and trauma. They're just gone.
I
like
think
our lives would be I think our lives would be a lot less dramatic and traumatic if we could just understand ourselves so much better. So I love that you're doing that. And
you said something, you know, I almost feel like I want to talk about children in general. Like I was that shy child. I also had very traumatized family, mother and father, but my mom was very traumatized, very unresolved. And so, she didn't love that I was shy, but she'd be like, oh, she's shy. And she'd try to push me out into the world. I'm like, and then I discovered at 15 years old, I had abilities that were different than people. And I was like, well, where's my tribe? Where's my people? Who's teaching me? In my 20s, I fell upon this healer who was clairvoyant, clairsentient. I'm like, oh my God, there's other people like me. Then it was a deep healing relationship, deeper healing. And then I'm at a point now, this is why I call myself Spirit Baby Medium, Medical Intuitive, and Mentor. Because what I also want to reach out to, and I've been doing this on and off, not just I've worked with infants that have been born, but mentoring children, like that do have different gifts and abilities. And that's literally a new energy. Like I felt it in my heart months ago, and I just told the universe, okay, whenever you want me to start it, it sounds exciting. I'm here because I know, and I know you know, it's like to be that child who does have extrasensory perception and not have anybody. And this conversation is normal conversation. My 12 and 6-year-old, he's very magical thinker. My 12 is very open. He's a lot like my energy. He is clairvoyant. He is clairsentient. And he started saying different things at different times. And recently I tested him. I tested his clairvoyance and I'm like, wow, he's got a vivid imagination. Because he was saying accurate things about a picture I showed him. He just thinks it's whatever, but he was literally picking up things about this person. And I'm like, oh, there, he did it so easy.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
like I was that 12 that was like, wait, what's happening? And I'm just like, okay, you know, my children know mommy talks to dead babies or mommy talks to babies in spirit. They don't really think much about it. This is normal conversation. Supernatural living in my family is normal.
Mhm.
And we don't have to understand it all. We just have to, like you were saying earlier, just trust ourselves. And I
Yeah.
do want to feel like our children that we meet upon, the world, like I interact with different children at different times, and I'm like, I see so many empath children, so many
Mhm.
sensitive children, and I want to see
Mhm.
their gifts be loved and harnessed in a way that they're empowered human beings to become part of this world. So if you have multidimensional, not just empathy, feeling, sensing, but what if you have a starship conversation or you feel like you're from another planet? I'm like, yeah, I want to hear about it. It's not my experience, but it doesn't make it not true. And I know we're so multidimensional, and I feel like we need to begin to integrate that more, that there are definitely a lot of unexplained things, but it doesn't make life, we don't have to have meaning in everything. I know we want to, but we just have to live and like live with whatever our abilities are, because some people ask, well, how do you do what you do? And I can't explain it. And I don't want to. I don't want to. I just do it. How about that? I don't know.
I,
I'm
I
like,
can't.
I'm like,
So I mean, when you're entering a session with someone, do you have some kind of like protocol you follow, or do
a
you
little
just
bit. I've
know
created,
things?
no, I wish I had to show you my sample. I actually do things on paper and pen. I have a body, and when I hear the energy, I write it and I color the picture of the body because I could hear through a voice. I don't do usually video. I hear your voice, connect with your energy, and your story is there. It just is obvious to me. I write down the story and then I relay back what I see in the physical, emotional, which is interlinked, and the spiritual. But I'm a very forgiving person. Like I've seen a lot of stuff in people's energy field, but I go, you know what? You could still, this is good. You're not going to come to me and go, oh my God, like there's so much disharmony and sickness and pain. I'm like, that, you know what? That's like a lot of people. But what are you doing now to
Mhm.
bring in the healing, the inspiration? Because we have a lot of baggage, most of us, and
Mhm.
those scars stay in the energy field. But I'm also just listening in between whatever that person needs. Sometimes there's a lineage that comes through, an ancestral link, sometimes it's a past life. I just show up and see, okay. And so I do have a little bit of a method, a little body exercise. I want people to get quiet. I want to hear them. And then I get feedback from them because I go, oh, sometimes I know their profession based on their energy field, like I get a lot of, yeah, I get a lot of nurses and they have a very strong heart energy with like a healer's quality. And I'm like, gosh, they must be a nurse or they have to work in the healing art. Just no way. And then I get those things confirmed, which is fun. And sometimes I see sickness in people that's not theirs, or there's this lineage of sickness. And I feel like if I need to say it, I'm going to say it. Cancers. I've seen cancers come up through people. I've seen things that could send them into bad places. And I tell them, if we're seeing this, it doesn't mean it's bad. It means like there's something that wants to be reworked. I do
Mhm.
really believe that because I may not be able to see all those darker frequencies in people, but some people I do, and I feel like it's an opportunity. And what are you going to do with this opportunity? Because
Mhm.
I do see futuristic, and so for me, it looks like it's now.
Mhm.
And some people have been like thyroid energy. Oh no, Kelly, it's fine, it's fine. And then I've had emails coming through. Oh my gosh, my thyroid's totally off. And I'm like, you just needed to, I may have projected a few weeks in seeing how that energy was off, or the medical testing is wrong too, by the way.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
when I see thicker energy and from the medical intuitive perspective in people's body, I say to them, you need to be the advocate for yourself. You are your own medical intuitive because I see energy. I don't care if the doctor doesn't see it. There's something there and you need to be proactive with your health. And this happened with a woman who wrote me a testimonial too. It was right when I started medical intuitive work and within conception energy. And I kept talking about her lungs. And she later came back because I was like, we didn't go that deep in it. And then she said, well, I don't feel good in my lungs. I can't breathe. The doctor tells me I'm fine. Something feels wrong. And I said, you need to advocate for yourself. I don't
Mhm.
care what the doctor says. If you want a
Mhm.
certain test, you want to do something, you are the paying patient. You say, I need this now. So eventually she said, thank you. Kelly sent me this huge email. She said, if you didn't tell me to trust my intuition, I probably would have died, because she went to the doctor. He finally did a lung scan. He said, you have so many blood clots in your lungs.
Oh my.
Oopsie, I suppose, or sorry, or whatever. Like
Yeah, right.
and she said, because I kept saying, you got to trust your body. If that's what you feel, something is off. And then I went into the root of the emotion, and it was very much connected to so much of her family history that made sense on why
Mhm.
that was a part of her journey. But she did later conceive her child, and then was able to, but she had to, it was a really big deal. And it was really intense when I heard her say that the doctor told her, oh, you would have died in a week or two,
Oh
because
my
she
gosh.
knew something was up, right?
Yeah.
And that's
Well,
the
we know our
story.
bodies, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we live here. This is where I live. I know
Yeah.
my body better than anybody, and I am my own best physician. And I
Yes.
think it's great that you empowered her to be her own physician, because the providers that we see, they
Yeah.
don't live here. They don't they don't know our body better than we do, and they never will. Nobody will ever know our bodies better than we do.
And I love
And
that you say that, because in pregnancy, that's a big thing that comes up,
yeah,
where
yeah.
people are like, I had a man, a woman sit before me once when I used to do in-person sessions. And he said to me, Kelly, he's like, I think they were like lawyers and attorneys. And he's like, Kelly, don't you think I have a say in her birth? And I said, absolutely not, actually. I said, are you in her birthing body to know how she should birth and how she feels in it? And he was like, and I said, no. I said, I don't care. You can have the best connected partnership, but the one who's actually has the baby in their body and that's going to birth it has a physical, emotional, and spiritual, energetic attachment that you do not have.
Mhm.
And I feel like if there's a male-female partnership, or even female-female, whoever is carrying the baby gets the say. Everybody else on the outside, I call it a metaphorical pregnancy. You are not in that space, in this atmosphere. And so even in pregnancy, women, it's so hard to even go into, because there's so many women that just literally in pregnancy give their body up to science. I don't know what
Mm.
I'm doing. You go do it. I'm just going to follow along. And it's like, it's so disheartening. I have to pull my energy out of that, because I'm like, okay, people will come around. This is why I love the Free Birth Society, even that was created through someone that lived here and saw things as a doula she did not like. And she can be very controversial, but also it just coming back to our own wisdom to do things, coming back to our own energy and what makes us feel good in a birthing space, and to be pregnant without over intervention. Like, I think what they're doing now is they're doing a lot of internal checks with women in pregnancy. Midwives don't do that. Like, I'm like,
Mhm.
oops, like why has that become a thing? And when I brought it to women's attention, they're like, oh, you don't have to go. I go, no, your mucus plug, all that's keeping baby all clean. And you just want people to go in there for what
Right,
reason?
right.
Because we're too scared to trust the process of birth, even in the first trimester. And I get it if there's intervention, if there's like maybe lost or it's needed intervention, but there's way too much intervention. We do not need that much intervention in that space of pregnancy, even in birth. And I know more higher skilled midwives and people that are in the field could probably say so much more about it, but it's very activating, it's like, but we do coming back and empowering people to make
Mhm.
choices and decisions, even if it doesn't match with other people around them or their
Right.
providers, even, it doesn't matter.
No, it really doesn't. And
Yeah.
especially the providers, because, my mom's generation is of the generation where you go to the doctor, he tells you what to do and you do it and you don't ask
Yeah.
questions. You take the pills, you do the things. And I gradually watched her get more and more ill as the years went by. And I mean, she's my mom. I love her dearly, but she has been the best example for me of what not to do. And
Mm.
when I started experiencing health issues at a very young age, um, I would go to the doctor, I would take the pills, and I would get better for a minute, and the cycle would continue. And it didn't take long for me. And before I was even 15, I was like, this
Mm.
is nuts. I'm not getting
Mm.
better. Why am I doing this? And I don't, I look back, that was so many years ago, and I look back and I don't know why I thought the way that I thought. I just knew there was some serious fundamental flaws in our medical system that just didn't add up.
And when you're a kid, your advocate is your parents and they don't know. So it makes
No.
sense. I was the same. I got I call a lot of medical trauma through pills and IVs at a very young age. And it made me highly like, whoa, when I became in my 20s and there's like, wait a minute, no consent, no consent, nobody's
Mhm,
touching me. It's like, it's
mhm,
a very hypervigilant place for me. There's way too much. And so, our parents, of course, they can only do what their consciousness knows how to do. And we kind of come into that with them. But
mhm,
then you come and you go, whoa, okay. And we get to talk about it. I feel like we get to tell our stories to allow us to heal those parts for sure. Because
mhm.
there's no coincidence. I feel like a lot of things you're saying are so much my life, by the way. And I know we don't really know each other. We don't really have to, but in things you're saying, I'm like, wait, are we like sisters? Oh, somewhere, even with your mom, and my mom was so into intervention too, and she died in the hands of intervention. So, and I'm like, okay, the shy child. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay, this is making me
yeah,
curious.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So my mom is not doing great. She is actually injured,
hmm.
and she now has cancer, and her dementia has fallen
Oh,
off. I mean,
wow.
it's not a great picture ever
Yeah.
since she was convinced multiple times to receive something that I begged her not to receive, and
Oh,
she promised
yeah.
me she would not receive, and she got two. So,
Mm.
again, that was one of those moments when, and that's kind of why I asked you how you get your information, because I don't I don't necessarily go somewhere to go get information because I need an answer to XYZ. I'm just often minding my own business, and Shazam, I just all of a sudden know something that I really
Yeah,
don't
that's where
have
I
any
get
way
my
of knowing.
information from. All my
Yeah.
information comes from instinct, especially after talking about, 2020 was such a big reboot for humanity. I remember at some point I was like, don't look at Facebook, don't look at positive news, don't look at negative news. And I would close my eyes and be like, your body is the satellite, it is picking up information. And so to me, I was like, I don't care what data you read, I don't care what you read. And I've always felt that way, but I felt mocked for it many years ago. And
Mhm.
now that 2020 came, I'm like, God, I feel kind of normal now. People accept really my own presence and my own wisdom, which is so fascinating. Because before it was like, it was no. And now I'm just like, okay, I'm like, it just feels matter of fact to me that you wouldn't just stop and connect with your own wisdom
Mhm.
because everybody has a different interaction with their own frequency and their connection to the world where some people's like, hey, I'm going to do keto, and someone's like, well, I'm doing plant-based, and I go, fucking awesome. Can I say that?
That's fine.
Oh, it's like you're doing that, works for you, cool, you're doing that, that works for you. That's where the new world energy is supposed to be. We're not all supposed to do the same thing or be the same way. And it's like, okay, that works, that's cool. Are you still a good, integral, compassionate, open-minded human being that is going to test the world and the systems? I'm sorry, like, if you're not pushing and testing governments and wanting to like break away from even school education, what that looks like, medical stuff looks like, even finances, where our monies goes, and the I won't get on this topic, the biggest scam of taxes and all these different areas. I feel like a lot of us are meant to raise that frequency and be like, even though the world is still in labor pains of it, I'm like, this is not new reality and consciousness. It's gonna have to get more intense. It's literally feels like more trauma to the earth is going to happen because they're not getting there. And I don't make the rules. I just see the pattern and I listen. I can hear consciousness collectively when we move through shifts, and I've always have. And so I listen to that. And then I could tell I see patterns within people
Mhm.
starting to
Mhm.
emerge. And I'm like, huh, that's interesting. Hmm.
But if you
um,
have ever opened a history book, you can see patterns too. I mean,
mm,
humanity has repeated and repeated and repeated
mm,
and repeated. Not, it always looks a little different every time,
mhm.
but what we're going through right now isn't all that different from things that we've gone through at multiple civilizations over and over and over. It's like
Yeah.
collectively as humans, we just keep making the same mistakes. and we get to a certain point and we end up being our own demise. And it's a little maddening to watch, you know. It's happened so many times throughout history, and I just sit by it watching, going, we're really slow learners.
Yeah.
Really.
And I feel like, I don't know about you, but in the past, I guess 3 years now, I feel like I have become so much more accelerated. I've become a person I absolutely love. And so like I'm getting away from being pain-free too, which is a really big deal. And getting out of the old stories and speaking up. Like I feel like I'll say things and I'm like, oh boy, should I have not said that? Is that okay? And I was like, no, it doesn't matter, because I feel that way. And I know that my purpose in this world is to bring in that baby energy, to bring in this conscious birthing into the hearts of mothers and babies. And I try not to overanalyze it, but I have looked before. I'm like, what is this work that I do? Does this make sense? Like, you know, dumb little Kelly, who couldn't even pass any grades in school, now created her own business, and it's in a space that doesn't really exist, but I guess it does. And so, and then she gets to love it, like, and do it because it's easy, not because I have to do something a certain way. But I feel like the creative force right now is so strong and so big. And we get to, I don't know, I get to be a part of that. And I've never actually felt so much calm, peace, and joy in my life. And I know there's a sustaining energy for me in that. And what my signal of energy is supposed to be, about. And it doesn't mean I don't have fear. It doesn't mean the old traumas don't want to get activated. It just means that my baseline is just happiness, like all the time. Like, I'm just like, okay, I'm game for that one. Even though I sit and hear tragedy, I have love and compassion for those people. And I know that they're going to be okay. They really are. People, we're eternal.
Yeah.
We're eternal. So
yeah. And I think we
I know
forget that.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Well, when we're in these human
Seriously.
suits, we forget we are eternal, right? We have so
Yeah.
much fear, and we fear death so significantly, and it's so much drama and trauma when we
Oh, yeah.
lose a loved one. And call me the weirdo, but I am not devastated by death anymore. I mean, when I was a kid, my sister passed away, and I was only 13, and
Oh,
she was,
wow.
I mean, she was everything to me. She was too much in my life. I mean, she was my oxygen, and that's not healthy. You know, I needed her to survive, and it wasn't healthy. But she was really my source of unconditional love. It was like, when I was with her, it was like God was shining upon me. It was the sun, the moon, the stars, and everything in between to me, and to other members of my family. We all adored her, and I mean, she was our favorite person in the whole wide world. And when she passed away,
How old was she when she passed?
she was almost 23.
Wow.
And she didn't pass right away. It took him a long time to get her out of the car. And that was kind of the good and the bad, because that's a whole nother 1 hour conversation. But
Yeah.
she received the full impact of a T-bone vehicle accident right where she was sitting. So unfortunately, she didn't pass away right away, but we feel like her injuries were probably so significant that hopefully she didn't feel all of the pain involved in that traumatic injury. But then you think, well, gosh, how long was she in that car, not able to move and get help? You know, there's a lot of mental stuff that goes on when your favorite person in the whole wide world is in an accident and still awake and aware and alive. So they did try to, I mean, it was kind of Humpty Dumpty. They did try to put her back together, but her body couldn't handle the trauma, and she did pass away a few hours after surgery.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty traumatic. A lot of injuries. She had glass in her liver.
Wow.
It was bad. It was really, really bad. And after I became a medical transcriptionist, and I learned a lot more about the body and anatomy and things that go wrong, I read the autopsy report, and I was like, she didn't stand a chance. Sorry. I now I understand why she passed away. And physically why she passed away. But, you know, at 13, there
Oh
was so
yeah,
much drama and trauma that I couldn't function anymore.
sure.
It almost destroyed me. It did destroy my life, but it almost destroyed me to the point where I almost didn't survive physically in my
Mm,
body
mhm.
because there was so much drama and trauma. And you know, again, I'm 53, so that was a very long time ago.
Mhm.
And obviously I've learned a lot. Thankfully I've learned a lot. Not everybody does. So I'm very grateful to be able to say that I have learned a lot. A lot of people get stuck in that drama and trauma, and that's as far as they can
Mhm.
go. And I understand that because I was there and it was not easy to come out of, right? So I can really relate to how you're talking about people who have trauma locked in their bodies and
Mhm.
now they want to have a child and there's no room. There's no room.
Yeah.
There's physically, energetically, there's no room. And I can really relate
Yeah.
to that
And
because
that's
there's
why,
so much.
yeah, and that's why people, I've gotten a lot of people throughout the years who come at wit's end with their story and journey, and giving them little pieces that a medical doctor will not get. But guess what? There's actually healing in it, and it can be a moving, it's your pill, it's your
Yeah.
massage to
Yeah.
see the story, and then for you to keep expanding with it. I really do feel, it reminds me of, are you familiar with Carolyn Mace, world-renowned
Hmm.
medical intuitive, and Dr.
Hmm.
Norm Shealy wrote a book, Dr. Norm Shealy, and he has her in the book. And one of the things he shares is that from that medical intuitive perspective is the accuracy of a medical intuitive and a physician were neck and neck, by the way. And at times the percentage was so high, and he's done, study and data, and it was really showing when he struggled, Dr. Norm, with these really difficult medical cases, he went in and got her, and they went into these other energies and lives, and all of a sudden the people were in what they call it like remission. And what he realizes that these missing other pieces were really around the sickness. And
Hmm.
I know that can be a whole other podcast to
Right.
talk about,
And I
all
would
those
love to do
interviews.
that.
But
Seriously, I would love to.
yeah,
I mean, this is the kind of stuff that I could talk about all day
yeah.
long
I mean,
because
medical intuition is its own. I feel like there's so much amazing things that I've seen and healing with people within the energetic.
mhm. And that's what I meant by
Yeah,
too full. I know for me and for my
yeah,
body, I was so full of
yeah,
drama and trauma
yeah,
that I I for many years I couldn't even eat because I was
yeah.
full. It was literally full. And as you can imagine, the heaviness of that energy year after year after year after year was it was just so much physically.
And you
And
said the reason why I know we got into that conversation was the eternalness, right? Of
because
like,
we
yeah,
get
how do
so wrapped
you,
up,
yeah,
yeah, well, we get so wrapped up in the loss of
yes,
that person,
yeah,
and we see death as so final.
mm,
And at 13, I did. I
of
mean, it was like
course, I would too.
I'm never going to see her for the rest of my life, right? And it's so final. But when you start to understand our really brief blip of time here in this lifetime
Mm,
on this planet in the grand scheme of the universe in multiple universes, you think, what about the eternal? What about
mm,
where we go after we drop our human suit? And you
mhm.
realize it's, and again, this is where a lot of my Christian friends are not going to enjoy this conversation, but when we enter the kingdom, it absolutely is eternal. And
Mm,
it's there, it doesn't have to be drama and trauma and finality. It's, yes, we do have to process that loss. They're not here anymore the way that they were, but that doesn't mean a whole lot. It doesn't have to mean a whole lot unless we assign that it means a whole lot.
yeah,
I so many times I see people posting the anniversary of the loss of their loved one from 31 years ago.
I
And I
know.
just think
Wow.
they're not lost. You
Mm,
you had them in your life. They're not lost. They're right there.
mhm.
They're right there.
Yeah.
Just drop into your heart. They're right there.
Yeah.
You know, my sister, I can't call her on the phone anymore.
Yeah.
You know, she doesn't have a phone. But when I drop into my heart, she's right there. It's not, sorry.
I say she's a dimension away right there.
Really, it's
It's right there.
when
Yeah.
I drop into my heart, all of my loved ones are right there. I can still hear
Mhm.
her laugh. I can
Mhm.
still remember going to the beach with her. It's outside of time. She's
Mhm.
right there. And that really takes the drama and the trauma all the way out of any loss that we can experience
Yeah.
with our loved ones, you know, be it a baby that we've only known for 3 hours,
Mhm.
or a sister we've known for 13 years, or my
Yeah.
mom who's 84, you know, I
Wow.
mean, yes, they're not here
Yeah.
anymore the way that we wanted them to be.
Yeah.
And to go through all of the pregnancy and, you know, heaven forbid somebody has a stillborn baby, or
Mhm.
a baby that dies of SIDS, or, you know, even a baby that only lasts 3 years for whatever reasons.
I've worked
I,
with all of those areas, by the way. You
right.
literally just named all my clients. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that I've done that. I've done that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it's very
Yeah.
traumatic to lose a little,
Yeah.
but it's just as traumatic to lose a big. And my, I guess my point was, with all of this rambling, is yes, there is a component of loss, but don't forget the eternal.
Yeah. The
Don't
eternal
forget.
is big. And that's what I do in my group called the Afterlife of Spirit Baby. Also called, I have Motherhood to Mediumship, has a lot to do with connecting the mothers to their children eternally, listening to the messages, the signs, the signals. I hear them, but you know, I'm not them. And
Right.
I'll give them insight and ways that they can continue to build that relationship and keep trusting it,
Yeah.
because, you know, that's what they need right now. And they're like, they need to connect with that child that's in between worlds, that's dead. I call it the children of light, because they're living in light now. They're made out of light, and they're still present. But I know in our culture and religions, we're not taught that. We're
Right.
taught to like push it away, be scared of it. But you know what? We are evolving, and people are breaking through old man-made ideas and going, you know what? That doesn't work for me.
Mhm.
I feel like we're getting deeper kind of callings on our own soul's intelligence. It's there. I do feel even with life and death, like there's some kind of amnesia before we're born, but we know before. We just may have put it to sleep a little bit, but we know when we're born because we're there. And we know, I do believe most of us know when we're going to die. The energy changes around people before they leave. And I know I've seen it with a lot of people, animals, and people. And maybe that's just how I perceive it, but people tend to get really loving and very deep. And when we see children, we see exceptional children, very multi-talented children, and even your sister into young adult. So when you were saying, oh, she was just an amazing person, and that I feel like is common, because I feel like these people know they're not going to be here long. I do feel like we have exits of death and we may not choose all of them, but when we go, like, you know, we have to then look at the world and go, oh my gosh, like, am I doing everything I can in this space? Because I have no time to waste. Like, I hear people talking about depression and regret, and I get it. I'm not minimizing clinical issues, but I'm like, how do I get myself out of there? This place is precious. Like, I need to
Mhm.
like feel it with my hands, taste the amazingness of it, smell the air, feel the earth. I'm not going to no longer take it for granted, because for a long time when I was younger, I was like praying all the time, like, God, like, this sucks. Are you torturing me? Like, what is this? I don't get it. I want to go home. I was begging to go home for years, but I never did anything to make that happen. And then I was like, gosh, Kelly, stop being a baby. Stop throwing a tantrum. Like, this is amazing. This is okay. And even having my own children, I wasn't sure I was going to have children. So it's like, this is like such a big earth thing to do. And then I was so scared. And then I was like, okay, let's see, what is this other chapter? And now I'm in a space where, yeah, I'm like, life is okay. Like, even when trauma comes, I'm doing a lot of light therapy, which really changed my whole presence in my body. But I'm like, okay, I'm like, this is great. I'm like, I got this. You know, I may not be the richest person, but I'm happy in my heart. And whatever that means, because we're all always trying to like survive and aim for some comfort and money. But I get to travel and be a part of my life. I homeschool my children now, so I get to see them all the time. I get to learn about the world with them and connect with really amazing people I've met just all around the city. And I really like that. It's like, this is good. Like, we'll see what comes next. What creative, fun, love project, comes into this space. I'm welcoming it.
I love that. I absolutely love that. So before we wrap up, I want to know a little bit about your book. What is your book?
Oh, well, so the book is a journal. It's not really a book, like a
Oh,
written story. I am actually
okay.
working on a book for like ever, which is more about my story. Its working title is Notes from a Spirit Baby Medium.
Okay.
And it's that's gonna be let's just pray it gets out here. I don't know, it's gonna take forever. Anyways, I do have a journal. It's called Sacred Communication, a Spirit Baby Journal. And it's a journal for women in conception and pregnancy where it has questions and you can get more insightful answers, like what is it like, talks about psychic stuff, like what's that like to dream about your baby, or what do you imagine your baby to look like? And you're just kind of provoking these deeper inquiries on your connection. And then I have little oracle cards, Spirit Baby Oracle. So I'll answer some Spirit Baby. And they're just inspirational cards to just, conception, pregnancy, and birth loss. The idea is that the cards are reflecting baby. Like, so a card will say, like, can you feel me in your heart? I'm here. Don't quote me on those words. I'm trying to think of the cards. Or I communicate through music, or, I communicate through feeling and sensing. I know you're having doubts and uncertainty. It's really inspires people to be like, okay, let me take a breath, refocus, because there's some women that really struggle on a very long conception journey. And I've held, the hands and hearts of many women with multiple miscarriages, a very big area that I specialize in, and Spirit Baby connection. And so those two offerings, are just to inspire people to just, go outside themselves a little bit, to go inside.
Right. Go
Yeah,
inside, really deep
yeah.
inside. Yeah. Which we don't have a lot of practice doing
No, it's
for the
definitely a
most part.
practice. Yeah,
For the most part.
yeah.
Like you said, it's for a lot of people, it just comes naturally. It sounds like your boys, it kind of comes naturally, but then there's other people that are so profoundly disconnected from
Yeah.
themselves, really,
Yeah,
and who they
that was my mom in the past, before she passed away, for the final 30 years of her life, was a major disconnect. And that was very torturous for me to be a part of. And it makes me understand why I do the work I do, because I saw my mom as a very wounded woman in her older age. Her traumas were very unresolved. And they were coming out in every physical element you could think of in your body, from pacemaker to brain tumor to fake spine to knees to non-ambulatory. It's like, this is not normal for a
are.
person to have that much physical and emotional pain in their reality. And so I was the only person in her life at one point. Um, and so I feel like, of course, my mom has been my inspiration, because in a sense is I didn't want to become that, to be
Right.
honest.
Right.
And I know that there is more. And when I started getting into chronic pain, it was a huge red flag for me, because I saw her suffering way too long. And I don't think we should see anyone suffer, especially our mothers. It's very, very hard. It's like, because I can't fix her.
Yeah.
No matter what I did, there's no way. I could see her energy. I could see everything and know everything. It didn't
Nothing you could
matter.
do. Yeah.
Yeah. But when she died is why I became a medical intuitive. Because when she died, I realized I had medical intuitive abilities my whole life, and I never really put it into anything, because I took care of her and she
Mhm.
took a lot of energy. And when she died, I said, and I grieved for her, and I was mad that I grieved, and that's a whole other story. And she visited me many times in the beginning in dreams, and she still does. Now it's a different relationship, but um when I was able to become more like owning medical intuitive like skills, and it was really because she passed away, and I was able to say, I'm going to give this gift now, that through your death, to the people that need it. And I started working with children and adults for a while, but then I pulled it back to conception, because it's a lot of work.
Mhm.
And I was like, what's my intention? Like, if my friends come around, it's fine. I'll come look at an organ or something and get more information, some friends, but I don't actively like, I realize that people don't want information too. I know it sounds weird, but do you know what I mean?
I absolutely know what you mean.
They
We
don't want
want
to know why they have cancer in their left like a liver because their father beat them or something that I should not know. I know now. And I'm
Mhm.
saying, or whatever this trauma is or that. And
Well, we live
so
in a
I,
fast food
yeah,
nation, so your
yeah,
information is not fast food delivery,
no. And so
and
I've
neither
kind
is
of,
mine.
yeah, that's why I've shifted it into more of reproductive. And then on occasion, I'll connect medically too. I do it with my children. I do it with my friends. Like I always say, like, let me look. Let me take a
Yeah,
look, I say.
yeah,
Even my husband the other day was like, something's wrong. I go, let me take a look. You trust me? Let me take a look. Dr.
yeah,
Mom. I would
yeah.
say Dr. Mom first, then the Eastern doctor. And then if worse comes to worse, we go down to the conventional Western medicine. I was like, that's how it works. And so I like what you said earlier, like we are our own physicians. And I do feel like everybody has that ability. It's okay not to know everything that happens in our body. I know people are shocked all the time. Cancer's overboard. Like I feel it's epidemic, and that's my words because every other person I know has cancer. It's
Mhm.
becoming like a norm.
Yeah, it really is.
And it's a hard one because that's a hard energy to heal and work through, but people are having to be a part of it. And there are people healing. They are
Mhm.
healing
Absolutely.
and changing their lives for the better,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Well, the woman who formulated the products that I was telling you about before we
Yeah.
started, she um, she was actually pregnant the first time she realized that she had cancer.
Wow. Yeah,
She
that does
she
happen.
yeah, she developed a partial molar pregnancy and
Wow.
was told to abort.
Mm.
And she said, no, thank you. And
Mm.
she healed herself.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
And then if
amazing. I want to read
yeah,
up on that.
yeah,
Send me that information.
she's got quite a story. And a couple years later, she actually had another tumor, probably because, when you have cancer like that and you say no thank you to chemo and radiation, there's a chance that you're not going to naturally heal every cell, right? I mean, we can't
Mm,
ever heal every single cell.
mm,
So she developed another tumor behind her eye,
wow.
and they recommended surgery. She went for testing right before the surgery, and it was gone. She had healed herself again. So
Wow.
she's got a very, very interesting story with not only how she formulated her own medicine with the education and the ingredients that she had at her
Yeah.
disposal, but also with her intent and our own inner physician and our own
Yeah.
ability to heal ourselves. So yeah, I will definitely share that with you, but there's always hope, even if it's the big C.
Hmm.
And if there's a will and a knowledge, there's a way. There's always a way. There's too many stories that
Yeah.
exist of people. The one that I always refer to is Dr. Joe Dispenza. He is a
Yeah.
prime example of how there is no limit to what we can
Hmm.
do. There's no limit. And if people just tapped into that just a little bit more, I think we'd have a much easier journey to
Yeah. Wouldn't that
just
be amazing? We get more people infectiously connected to potentiality.
I love that.
Yeah. And then because it is contagious, a frequency that's shifting and moving into the impossible to the mind, but so many possibilities. There's so much to say in there. And I love it because I feel like sometimes words don't even belong in that space. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Like there's no
There aren't
full
a lot of words you can.
articulation. Yeah. And it's just there.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
It makes me happy because I feel like we're in it together now. Like it's like we're just in it. We're feeling it. It's a part of us. And that's
It
so
is.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for talking with me today. I would really
Yeah.
sincerely like to do this again, continue on some of the other spiral directions that
I
we could have.
know. Well, thank you for having me. I know it's like Spirit Baby meets children, meets medical intuitive, meets death, meets there's so many topics.
Eternal possibilities.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank
Absolutely.
you for having me. Wonderful to connect.
Thank you. All right. So that is it for today. Thank you for joining us. If you would like to reach out to Kelly, I will obviously include all of the links that are available, and you can reach out to her for support or assistance or guidance or mentorship or all of the things. And may you all be blessed. Thank you.